So welcome to this webinar. My name is Kim Knight, and our topic today is 10 action steps for depression. And before I go any further, as I always do, but very importantly with the topic of depression, is I need to say that whatever information I share, you need to take full responsibility for how you implement it. Because depression can be quite a serious illness and it can lead to people taking their lives. So we really need to take depression seriously, and we need to seek help if we need it. And it's very sad that when people take their life, and that even like Robin Williams, who did that a couple of years ago, really what it's saying is that they just feel so bad and they feel that there is just nobody out there that can help them, which is just not true, that they just go inwards and inwards and inwards, and finally they're just so isolated and alone and depressed that they take their life. And the thing is, it doesn't have to be that way. And obviously some of the techniques I'm sharing today will help people to move out of that depressed state, but sometimes we have to have many approaches, and there's not just one solution if we're depressed. But one of the most important things that we do need to do is that we do need to get help if we need the help. And of course, when we're depressed, often that's the last thing that we feel like doing or feel is possible to do. But it's really important that I share that it's absolutely vital that you take the suggestions that I'm going to make in this webinar, and you use them if you choose to, to the best of your ability. But if you are in a seriously depressed or suicidal state, please go and get the relevant help. Now, just to share, before I share the agenda for today, I just want to share a few statistics, because really depression and anxiety and chronic illness and many things are just an epidemic, and it seems that these figures are actually increasing rather than decreasing at the moment around the world. So some of these statistics that I'm sharing are taken over the last 2 or 3 years. So 350 million people worldwide suffering from depression, which is 5% of the world's population. Well, there's got to be something up there, right, if we're so depressed. And in 2012, 16 million adults had at least one major depressive episode. And people who have a close relative, such as a parent or grandparent or a sibling or whatever, who have had depression are more likely to suffer depression themselves. And it's interesting because for myself, my grandmother was quite depressed, and I know that there is energetically stuff has been passed down, and I'm not going to go into that in this webinar. Talk about it in other webinars, and I also talk about it in my Stop Depression program. Is that energetically, when our ancestors, or people in our family, in our lineage, have had traumas and things happen to them and they get depressed, that can be passed down to us. So it's not necessarily just from this life. And when people talk genetics, people just tend to think genes, but genetics is much more than genes. Genetics is the energy and the beliefs and the memories that are stored at a cellular level in our being, which literally gets passed down to next generations. So if you think about it, you're a body, and you have everything that's in your body physically, and you also have your thoughts and your programming and your conditioning and your emotions and your memories and the traumas, and everything that's happened to you is literally stored at a cellular level inside your body. Now, say you come together with a partner, and depending, sperm, egg, whichever you are, you come together with a partner, and all this information and energy that is in you and all the information and the energy from your partner comes together in that sperm and the egg and creates a new life. And this is really how energetically this sort of information is passed down, and that's really what genetics is about. So, you know, nearly 15 million Americans will experience an episode of major depression in any given year. And depression is more likely to affect women than men. And, you know, nearly 100,000 people, because this is an old statistics now, it's probably maybe more, commit suicide as a result of depression. And that's really, really sad, because there's nothing worse than getting to that place where you just think, you know, life isn't worth living. And I've been there many times. I know what it's like, but there was something inside of me that just says, no, life is far too precious to, you know, to take my life. And the other thing is that well, from what I've learned from my spiritual teachers, is that whatever lessons we don't resolve in this life, we take them into other lives. So the best time and the best place to deal with our stuff is now, because otherwise, apparently, we take it on into other lives. So just a few statistics here. For example, in Australia, 3 million Australians are living with depression or anxiety. And suicide is the leading cause of death for males and females between 15 and 44, which is just crazy. So our world is really out of balance. So today, what I'm going to be going through is 10 action steps, and actually there's more than 10, but that's what I started with. 10 action steps for depression, which don't require external aids. And when I mean external aids, I mean really things like medication or supplements. And I am not saying, and it's not for me to make any comments about medication. It's actually illegal for me to make any suggestions about medication. I'm not saying, you know, as far as I understand, that some people don't need medication and these external aids. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying in this webinar is, here are some suggestions that you can actually yourself, without having to take medication or something that you think is going to fix you from the outside. Here are some suggestions that I know work, they're proven to work, that can help you to relieve depression. And I'll briefly share my experience of depression. And then at the end, I'm going to give an opportunity where just until the end of today, it's just till the end of today, that if anybody wants to get my depression program, they will get that for just over 50% off. So stick around for that if you're interested. And then I'm also going to share some preliminary details of my emotional alchemy program, which I'm launching next year. And I've been wanting to launch this for a couple of years. And it is a totally comprehensive program on how to deal with all sorts of different negative emotions. It's a totally comprehensive program. So I'm just going to share some preliminary details. It is not ready yet, but I'm just giving you a heads up. So what are the symptoms of depression, just before we get into the 10 action steps? Well, if you're experiencing depression, I'm sure that you're familiar with a lot of these symptoms. And by the way, if you watch on demand, and the on-demand webinar will be available later this week from my website, which I'll give later. I will also have a handout of some of the things I'm talking about today, and the list of these 10 action steps. But you will need to be registered on my program portal to get that replay. So, well, and to get the handout. So, you know, when we're depressed, we feel sad. There's a lot of sadness. Sometimes we can feel like life isn't worth living. We just feel down. We have difficulty concentrating. And actually, I've got another document that's got more. So, for example, these are some of the really, really common things of when people are depressed, thinking the worst about everything, which is what I call worst case scenario thinking, or WCST. difficulty concentrating, finding it difficult to cope, feeling hopeless, ashamed or sad. We tend to put ourselves down. We lose our mojo and our will to live. We're often afraid something terrible is going to happen. We can feel like life has lost its meaning and there's no purpose in your life. And by the way, the reason I'm going through this is so that, you know, if you're not quite sure if you're depressed or not, then you can cross-check against some of these, this list here. We can feel cut off from people, whether it's at work or family or community. We can have difficulty sleeping. We feel that others don't care about us. We feel alone and isolated. We don't have an interest in the things that we used to do. It's just like we just can't be bothered. We don't want to be around other people. So even though we feel isolated and don't want to be isolated, we also find it difficult to be with people. And we can cry more than often and just cry over nothing. And there's that wonderful scene in the film about a boy where the mother is reaching for a cup out of the cupboard, the kitchen cupboard, and she can't reach the cup and she just starts to cry. And you know, a lot of people who've not experienced depression would not have got that. But if you know what it's like to just cry for just about no reason, you know, that scene is very meaningful. We can find it difficult to work. Now, I mean, when I was first diagnosed with depression when I was 28, I was at work and I would go into work in the morning and it would take me about half an hour to rev myself up to be able to do my job. And then I'd sort of be okay and I'd work through the day and then I'd come in the next day and I'd have to do it all over again. So work can be difficult. And we feel like people don't understand what's going on for us, which is going to be the truth. If somebody else has not experienced depression, and this goes for any illness, if somebody else has not experienced that thing, that whether it's a mental state or a physical state, they just don't know what it's like. It can be difficult to make decisions, and we can have erratic bedtime hours, like, you know, going to bed really late, getting up really late. We can be drinking, we can do drugs, not want to exercise, lack of personal hygiene, you know, I can't be bothered to change my clothes, can't be bothered to shower, whatever, and we don't eat healthy. So these are just a few of the signs, the clinical signs of depression. And as far as the causes of depression, there's a lovely quote here. Research tells us that unfavorable experiences during childhood increase the risk of experiencing distress. There is also evidence that genetics can play a role in whether we experience later depression or anxiety. So I already talked about the genetics part, but the unfavorable experiences during childhood, in my experience, in my personal experience, and in the experience of the clients that I work with, this is the key. It is what has happened to you in your childhood that caused you to feel unhappy, that was traumatic, that you have not yet dealt with. And this has to be dealt with in order to really clear the cause of the depression. And really, you know, the reasons that I've noticed that, you know, contribute to depression are this childhood trauma and neglect, but also in the now, if we have, or, you know, in our life, if we have major life changes or major life challenges, which create a lot of emotion, such as frustration or sadness or grief, and that emotion is not being dealt with, then that can lead to depression. Obviously, financial stress can contribute, loneliness contributes, a backlog of emotions, and also negative thinking. And negative thinking is a habit and a pattern, and we don't even know we're doing it. You know, in England, they say that we have whinging poms. And, you know, if you've only got to watch a program, and I'm sorry, if you like this program, I apologize, but you've only got to watch a program like Coronation Street. And it seems to me, from the, you know, the very rare times that I've caught a snippet of that program, or even EastEnders, you know, these are two English programs, where I don't know what the percentage of the time is, but they just seem to be complaining, whinging. Now that is negative thinking, and that is not healthy, because our thoughts create emotions which create consequences in our life. When we have negative thoughts and negative emotions, we literally change the chemistry inside our body. We literally make ourselves toxic with toxic chemicals and chemistry inside our body. So we have to change this. And the amazing thing is, and the reality is that we actually have the ability to change a lot of this ourselves, as I said, without these external things, you know, such as medication or supplements. So there are many signs and symptoms of depression. And what I want to share here is this chart here is what is called the levels of consciousness. It's by a medical doctor, Dr. David Hawkins, who is actually now passed over. But he was a medical doctor with a difference, because he was actually also self-realized. So he was had a very deep understanding of human life and how humans work. And he has some great books, which I've read all of them a while back. So he has this chart, and if you can see here, there's a line horizontally in the middle. And the way I always look at it is that if we're below the line, and by the way, I used to think this even before I saw this chart, is that if we're below the line, then, you know, we need to really look at what's going on, because it means there's some serious unhappiness. And really we could divide this chart into what is below the line is unhappiness, and what is above the line is happiness. And our natural state as a human being is actually to be above that line. That is where we should be. We should be happy. That is our natural state. Our natural state is to be happy and healthy. But a lot of people are below the line in the unhappiness, which is also where the sickness starts, because sickness is the result of unhappiness. No doubt about it. Disease is a state of dis-ease. So when we're depressed, we're going to be experiencing what is below the line here, which is the guilt, the shame, the grief, the fear, the anger, the hatred, the regret, the despair, the blame, the hopelessness. This is what we're going to be experiencing. And it was interesting because I had an email from somebody who sent an email about this webinar. They said that I want this to be anonymous, but they said, I've had a lifelong battle with depression, and then I've had CFS, which is chronic fatigue syndrome, and ME. To me, they're the same thing. My question is about lack of motivation. How do I find within to get better when my default state is hopelessness? I find this hopelessness often carries with it a strong tendency to self-destructive behavior, and it will do. So what I found is that, yes, we can get to that place of hopelessness, despair, I want to give up, life isn't worth living, I don't know how I'm going to go on, and I've been there many times, I know what it's like. But there has to be something inside, there has to be a part of us that makes a decision that we're going to find a way, that we're not going to give up. And that decision can only really come from inside us. Now, I have to say, it really, one of the things that really helps, and it is one of the 10 action steps that I'm going to be coming to, is that having support, having supportive people will really make a difference. It will really help us to get out of that hopelessness. I remember when I was first depressed and I was with a partner, and actually it was sort of weird because he was part of the problem in a way, but not really. But I attracted myself to a partner who was not healthy because I was not in a healthy state. I was not in an emotional, mental, healthy state. I had so much negative thinking, so many negative things from the past which I had no idea at that point that were still inside of me. All this emotional toxicity was still inside of me, and through the law of attraction And by the way, I'm going to be doing a webinar this month on the law of attraction. Well, it's actually a training. It will be a paid training. But through the law of attraction, I had unconsciously, and there's no way that we can bypass this, I had attracted to me, you know, a person that matched my negativity, right? We don't see that usually at the beginning, but it's how it works. And so, you know, it was not a good, healthy relationship. It actually turned into, you know, quite an abusive relationship, but mainly emotionally and mentally abusive, which I didn't recognize initially because I was so negative. But the one thing that was good and that was helpful was that he kept saying to me, you're going to come through this, you're going to come through this, you're going to come through this, because I was in a very, very depressed state. I was actually in a hospital. And it was just a black tunnel. I couldn't see any light at the end of the tunnel, and to have somebody outside of me saying, you're going to get through this, you're going to get through this, or whatever uplifting words of encouragement somebody else can say, that is very, very helpful. Now we still have to do the work ourselves, right? This is the thing with emotional work and mind work. Unfortunately, but ultimately, fortunately, nobody else can do it for us. We have to do it, which is why we need the tools to be able to do it. And we need the guidance and the assistance to do it. But we have to do it. Nobody can feel for us. Nobody can think for us. We have to do it. But as far as getting through hopelessness, we have to come to this point where there's a part of us inside that says, I don't know how, but I'm going to get through this. And we need to get some support. We need to get some help. So if we're really in that place, my suggestion is get professional help. Because if you're in a place where you can't get out of it, then it is a sure sign that you need some help. So I hope that's helpful. So as I've already alluded, emotions, well, depression is really to do with emotions and really to do with suppressed emotions. This is a big, big part of depression. Yes, maybe we've had trauma in the past, maybe we've got challenges and difficulties going on in the present, but all of those things create emotions. And if we don't deal with the emotions, then what happens is we put them in a pot and we put the lid on and we depress the emotions in the pot. And these emotions are being automatically triggered inside of us from the moment we're born, and potentially even in the womb. So every time we have a negative emotion like sadness, fear, upset, disappointment, hurt, grief, etc., 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 every time one of those emotions is generated inside of us, because it's energy and energy cannot be destroyed, that is a law of physics, energy cannot be destroyed, that emotion, that energy in motion goes into the pot until it can be cleared. And this is why it's so absolutely essential that we learn how to manage our emotions and clear our own emotions. And in order to do that, we've got to be able to identify them and know they're there. And for most people with depression and anxiety and chronic pain and chronic fatigue, it's because they're actually not feeling the emotions. They're not aware they're there. So the first step is, you know, we have to be aware. So we put all these emotions in a pot and we depress our emotions, and then we start experiencing depression. And as I mentioned earlier at the beginning of this webinar, the truth is that our natural state is to be happy, and that happiness is an inside job. Now, I'm not saying this is easy, okay? This has not been an easy journey for me. And even this year, after I don't know how many years of sort of being depression free, I've had an incredibly challenging, stressful year. And I've gone into depression a couple of times. But the thing is, I had the tools to deal with it and to bring myself out. And one really important thing to remember is a lovely phrase, this too shall pass. Nothing lasts forever, and everything is always changing, because a law, another law of the universe, is that the only constant is change, right? Everything is always changing. And if you know the yin-yang symbol, the meaning of that symbol is that there are two extremes, so the yin and the yang, but when one gets, or we could say two elements, the yin and the yang, you know, the dark, the light, the up, the down, the opposites. And when one reaches, one of these elements reaches its extreme, it turns into the other, which is why there is the dot of white in the black and the dot of black in the white. That is the meaning of that symbol, that when it reaches its extreme, it turns into the opposite, right? So this too shall pass, right? It does not have to be like this because forever, because one of the things with depression is that when we get into that mental state, for some bizarre reason, it feels like we're going to be there forever. It feels like it's not going to change. So it can change, but we have to do whatever we need to do to change. And happiness is really an inside job, which is why you can have a beautiful sunny day like we have right now, looking out onto a beautiful sunny day. It's summer here, finally, in New Zealand. And, you know, if I was in a depressed state, I would be looking out and I would just be thinking, blech, you know, it doesn't matter if it's a lovely, beautiful day out there. Inside me, I would just be feeling horrible. Whereas if I'm feeling good inside, which I'm feeling fairly good inside right now, it's like I look outside, but I feel good inside. So our happiness does not have anything to do ultimately with the outside. It is an internal state. And this is really, really important to remember, because we have the power to change our internal state. So I've mentioned a little bit, I'm not going to go into a long story here, but when I was 28, I was diagnosed with depression and ended up in hospital. And that began my journey of learning about myself and learning that I had these things inside me called emotions, which I never knew I had. And I thought I was progressing okay, and I suppose, you know, in some ways I was. But then when I was 35, I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue. And then I spent 10 years searching for answers. And after 5 of those years, I finally did have a turning point. After trying over 200 therapies, I finally found the biggest piece of the puzzle. And the biggest piece of the puzzle was understanding that I had suppressed my emotions. And even though I'd sort of been learning about it, I had been to counseling and lots of different therapies, I hadn't really fully recognized the extent of how depressing emotions creates depression and symptoms, physical symptoms. And for me, the physical symptoms were fatigue, and there were other symptoms as well. It's like I had asthma, and in my teens I had urticaria and hives and hay fever and terrible bladder infections and really bad candida. I mean, there was just a whole host of symptoms that I had, and it was all to do with emotions. So once I learned that, I then started to learn and put into practice techniques to identify and clear my emotions. And that is why I am so passionate about teaching people how to identify and clear and manage and master their emotions. And that is what the program is going to be about, my emotional alchemy program. It's like looking at all of these negative emotions and clearing all that away, like clearing the clouds away of the negative emotions, so that you can see the sun and you can see the blue sky that's always there. So that is why I'm so passionate and also dedicated to teaching people this, because in my experience, if we don't do this, we cannot clear illness and we cannot clear depression. Yes, we can take medication. Yes, we might take some supplements which will help, and that's all good. But if we don't deal with our internal self, we will never truly deal with the root cause. It's just a plaster. So I don't say that to scare you, because if you are on medication and it's making you feel better, then that's fantastic. But please consider that, you know, what would happen if I didn't take the medication? Would I go backwards? So what I like to do is to give people the tools that they don't have to rely on these things, okay? They can rely on the inside. So what we need to do, and I'm coming now to these 10 action steps, is to have an action plan. And so I'm going to share these. It's actually about 17 action steps it ended up with. And the first thing is actually to have an action plan, because when we're feeling good, you know, everything's good, right? Life is flowing okay. But when we get into this depressed state, this is when we need the help. But if we haven't almost, you know, sort of prepared ourselves for what do I need to do, when we're in that depressed state, we can't think of what it is that we should be doing or could be doing, right? So you can actually prepare a document, you know, and as I said, there will be a handout of some of what I'm covering today in the on-demand replay in the portal later. But we need to prepare our own personal action plan for, like, when I'm depressed, this is what I'm going to do. And some of the things that I'm going to be going through in a moment will be some of those things potentially that will be on that list. And maybe there will be other things, because I don't know exactly what it is that you need to do, because everybody is a unique person. But actually have, you know, a piece of paper or something that when you get depressed, you go, okay, I'm going to remember, I'm going to get that piece of paper out and I'm going to read it. And I'm going to stick it on my mirror and look at it every day, and whatever that action plan is. So it's really important that we have people contact. Now, one of the things that I do sometimes when I'm feeling lonely is that I'll go somewhere like the gym where I'm a member and they have a nice cafe there, and I'll sit there and there'll be people around. I'm not actually interacting with them because I don't know them. But just the feeling of having other people around and feeling connected energetically to other human beings is really, really important. Because as human beings, we need, you know, ideally, obviously, you know, meeting friends and going out, that's even better. That's 10 times better or 100 times better. But if we don't have that, you know, just go to a shopping center, go out somewhere where there are people, because we need that human contact. We need the heart-to-heart contact. You know, yes, we can get on social media or on Facebook, whatever, but that doesn't replace actually having this interaction or this connection, even if we're not talking to people, with people in our environment. So that is one step we can do. The next thing we can do is to get out in nature. Often we can be stuck inside four walls. Sometimes, you know, people can be in places where there's no fresh air, they have air conditioning, whatever. There is nothing like going outside and breathing in fresh air and going for a walk, and hopefully there's some sunshine. It is very, very uplifting for the soul. I mean, even if I live in a little house here and I look outside onto a beautiful, you know, nature view, but if I go outside, it is completely different to me looking at that nature view through the window. Our body needs that fresh air. And also what is very, very healing is to put our feet on the earth, which is called earthing. Because one of the problems in our Western society is that we wear shoes, we're often indoors, we're often, you know, 10 stories up or 20 stories up or whatever it is, we have a lot of Wi-Fi around us, and we get very unearthed. Now, if you think of a plug, you know, like an electric plug put into a socket in a wall, not so much, don't think of it so much now, but I remember, like when I was growing up, that we would have some plugs that would just have the I don't know, what is it, the red and the blue wire, you know, which is the live wire, and I don't know what the other one is. And then we would have some which would have a red and a blue and a green, and the green was the earthing plug. And any electrical appliances always had to, probably still do, had to have the earthing plug, which was the safety plug. So we need to have connection to the earth, because when we do, the earth has what is called a Schumann resonance, which is a very natural healing resonance. And when we put our feet on the earth, that energy comes up through our feet, and it helps to harmonize and balance our body. So unfortunately, in our very Western world, we're not doing that very much. You know, as I said, we're wearing the shoes, we're indoors, and there is no earthing. There is no earth connection. Some people have reported even becoming well from being very sick just by doing earthing every day and lying on the ground, even in the snow, you know, earthing. So try and get outside and put your feet on the ground, barefoot, on the ground, on the earth, but also get that sunshine, get that fresh air, go for a walk. And interestingly enough, when we walk, we move blood and fluids through our liver. And when our liver is stagnant and we have stagnant chi and stagnant energy and then not enough movement in our liver, that contributes to depression, because the energy that is connected with the liver is anger. And when we suppress anger, it's a very, very toxic emotion. And as I've said, depression is depressing emotions, and in particular sadness and anger are two of them, I feel, the most highest contributing emotions to depression. So get out and do activities, if possible, with other people. So that could be having a coffee, it could be doing some sport, it could be playing bridge. But when we get out and we have this connection with people, we can feel so much better and we can feel uplifted. So very, very important to get out and be with other people and actually doing things with other people. Now, I know this can be really, really difficult when we don't feel like doing it. And this is where the willpower has to come in. We literally sometimes have to force ourselves out the door. I know it is hard. I know it is the last thing that you feel like doing, but you'll feel so much better if you do it, okay? And only you can do it. Yes, you might have somebody there if you're fortunate saying, hey, come on do this, come on, do that. If you've got a friend or a partner who is encouraging you to get out, then that's fantastic. But you know, for some people, and that's certainly been the case for me, there has been nobody to help me do this. I've had to do it myself. And exercise is really important, even if it's just low impact going for a walk. As I said, getting the chi moving, getting the blood moving through the body. You know, one of the biggest things that mainstream medicine will recommend for overcoming depression, you know, through self-help techniques is doing some exercise. So it could be walking, it could be squash, it could be tennis, it could be, you know, some intense exercise, it could be low-key exercise, it could be qigong, right? But get the body moving. And as I've mentioned before, fresh air and sunshine. Fresh air and sunshine are just so powerful for making us feel better. And also, if we can get to, if you live either near a lake or near the sea, especially the sea, there's negative ions in the air. It can really, really uplift us. And so our job is to get ourselves out to do these things. And I know it can be challenging, but we have to do it. If we want to feel better, we have to do it. So I'm not giving some sort of quick fix here. This is not a pill. It is not something that is necessarily easy, but it is effective and it does work. Now, another thing that can really help us shift our mind and feel better is to tidy, to have a tidy space that we live in, to have clean and tidy space. Now, 20 years ago, one of the first things that I ever trained in as far as natural health was in feng shui or feng shui, however you like to pronounce it. So I trained in feng shui, and the first law of feng shui is tidy, 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 or declutter, declutter, declutter. And I'm sure you know how you feel when you've either cleaned your house, you know, cleaned your kitchen, cleaned your bathroom, your bedroom's all nice and tidy, you've gone through papers and chucked out stuff in your office. You know how good it feels, right? So just tidy the pantry. Just do one shelf if that's all you can manage. But just notice the difference it makes inside, because energetically everything is connected. Our external world is intrinsically connected with our internal world, and when we just make a little shift on the outside, which is what feng shui is all about. Feng shui is about changing the external world to change your internal world. So if you just tidy one drawer, and I remember when we were training in feng shui, she said, just tidy your sock drawer, just see how that makes you feel, you know, if you want to feel better. So just start tidying and see if that makes a difference to your mood. And another thing that is quite important to do sometimes is to clear the space energetically. So that means, you know, doing some sort of ritual or energetic clearing, and you can just go and search for some, you know, some ways to do that. One of the ways that I recommend is through the Perilandra space clearing process, which I use. Perilandra is P-E-R-E-L-A-N-D-R-A. So just Google that, Perilandra space clearing. But you can also do, you know, with sage. I used to do that in the past. I don't really do that anymore. But just find a way to clear and cleanse energetically the space, because the thing is, every time we have an emotion or a thought, literally that energy goes out into our environment. So if you imagine that you're sitting around for weeks on end feeling depressed, angry, frustrated, sad, that energy is literally seeping out and infusing your environment. So you're just living in this environment of that energy. So we as humans, we have to take the time to clear that energy out of our environment. And I can assure you it works and it makes a difference. So again, you can go and look that up and find a way to do that. And very, very importantly, part of, you know, stopping depression is that we've got to stop our negative thinking. So the question is, how aware are you of your thoughts? And we have something like 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. How aware are you of those thoughts? And the problem is we can have this negative thinking and just not be aware of it, or whatever our thinking is, we cannot be aware of it. It takes a lot of self-awareness and a lot of mindfulness to be aware of our thoughts. But for example, if you're continually thinking, oh, I'm alone, I'm alone, I'm alone, I'm alone, I'm sad, I'm sad, I'm sad, I'm sad, that is creating toxic chemicals inside you. That is literally changing your chemistry. Every time you think a negative thought which produces a negative feeling, that is changing your body chemistry. Whereas every time you think, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm joyful, life is good, I'm grateful, and positive thoughts, that creates a different chemistry, creates more of the serotonin and good feeling hormones inside your body. So who is in charge of your thoughts? You are. We have to take responsibility for our thoughts. Now, the reason we have these negative thoughts, it's a pattern, it's a habit, it becomes an unconscious habit and pattern. And it all comes from whatever happened in our childhood and the negative thinking habits that we set up back then. So this is why we have to go back, we have to heal our past, we have to become aware, we have to change our thinking. We can do all that. Now, this is not an overnight process, right? This is not an overnight process, but we must stop our negative thinking. So one of the things that I do is that when I notice that I'm, you know, because I have to notice first of all, because they're just so unconscious, these thoughts, is that when I notice the thoughts, I just say cancel, cancel, Stop buying into it. Cancel. We don't have to perpetuate those thoughts. And we are the master of our mind and our emotions, nobody else. So we have to stop our negative thinking. And of course, eating healthy is important. If you've watched that film, what is it, Super Size Me, where the guy decides he's going to eat McDonald's for a month or 2 months or whatever it was, and he couldn't even make it all the way through because he felt so sick physically and so sick mentally and emotionally as a result of only eating McDonald's. And he had to, if they said, you know, do you want to supersize that? He had to say yes. That was the agreement that he made on the experiment. He was so sick that he couldn't even finish the experiment. So what we eat does affect our mood, our mind, our thoughts, because obviously whatever we're putting into our body, it's being broken down and it's being put into all the cells, right? Now, this doesn't mean that we have to have a perfect diet, but, you know, what we eat and what we drink as well will make a difference. So, you know, are you drinking lots of fizzy drinks? Are you drinking lots of coffee? Or are you drinking lots of water, right? And good quality water as well, not the chlorine crap that comes out of the tap here in New Zealand, for example. It's just disgusting. So what are you putting into your body? And sugar is a big no-no. It really does things to the brain. It is toxic like cocaine, and I have to admit that this is one of the most difficult things for me to change, because when I was a kid, my way of getting comfort was to go and buy chocolate. That was how I made myself feel better, and that's what comfort eating is all about. It's about trying to make ourselves feel better, which is a healthy thing to do, but it's how we're going about that. And I'm much better than I used to be, but I still have sometimes cravings for chocolate, and that's just this old habit and this old patterning, you know, literally neural pathways in the brain and chemical stuff in the whole body. So but you know, lots of research and studies on the you know, really detrimental effects of sugar. So try and cut out the sugar and the unhealthy fats, not the good fats. And one thing that we can do is think about other people, because when we get depressed, we usually obviously just totally focused on how we're feeling, and we're going inwards. It's like this implosion inside, and we're just totally focused on ourselves and how bad we're feeling. But if we actually go out and open ourselves up and think about other people and help somebody else, that can make us feel much better. So that's a thought, you know, to do some voluntary work. And also when we do voluntary work, usually we're connecting with people, and we're connecting with like-minded people, and that will make us feel better about ourselves and feel happier, etc., etc. And lastly, as I mentioned at the beginning, is that sometimes we need to get help, right? Now, that's whatever help you know, feel drawn to go to, whether that's a medical doctor, whether that's a counselor, a therapist, you know, somebody like myself. We need help sometimes. And there's no crime in needing help. And actually, if we're really depressed, it is a sure sign that we need help. It could be just reaching out to friends to ask for help, which can be some of the most difficult, you know, sometimes the most difficult thing to do, because there's a lot of shame sometimes with depression. But we must reach out and get help. So another really important thing is that we must allow ourselves to have fun. Now, often when we're depressed, because, you know, part of it will be tied up with these feelings of I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I can't put myself first, I can't allow myself to enjoy myself, I've got to do all my work first, I've got to put everybody else first, whatever it is. And we don't have enough fun. And lifting our spirits is one of the most important things that we need to do in general as a human being. You know, we're here actually to be happy, and in order to be happy, we need to have some fun. So we need to give ourselves permission to have fun. So I'm giving you permission to have fun. And hopefully then you can start to give yourself permission to have fun. And we also need to learn techniques to de-stress, because when we get very, very stressed and very, very fearful, that shuts off our neocortex, which is the part of our brain that comes up with ideas and creativity. Our brainstem takes over, and we just think we're in danger, you know, at a physiological level. And it's very hard to really make positive change when we're really, really stressed, which is why I have my de-stress program. So we need to learn to de-stress. And we need to learn, very, very importantly, as you probably gathered by now, we need to learn how to identify, clear, manage, and master our emotions. And that is what I've spent the last 20 years doing. And now I can, you know, pretty much say that I'm pretty masterful over managing my emotions, which is why I love teaching people how to do that. And that is, as I said, what will be my emotional alchemy program will be all about, is how to identify, clear, resolve, dissolve, manage, master, whatever word you want to put on it, or your emotions. And as I said, get help, ask for help. So when this webinar is edited and put into my portal, then I'll also add in the handout that I showed earlier, and you'll be able to sign in and watch the replay of that. And to summarize, there is much that we can do, or you can do, and that actually we must do to change and clear depression. If we don't want to just rely on medication and go down that route and use what I call the plaster, which, you know, sometimes, you know, we really need that help. But if we don't just, you know, if we don't want to be on medication for the rest of our life, then, you know, there's much that we can do inside. And if happiness is an inside job, then clearing depression is also an inside job. So if we're taking medication, yes, symptoms may reduce, but ultimately the cause is not being addressed. Okay, so taking a pill is just masking the symptoms. It's sort of zoning out those symptoms so we don't notice them so much, so that we then can get on with our life. And that is fantastic. If we can get back to doing what we, you know, to living our life, then that's fantastic. But what would happen if you didn't take that medication? And I'm not saying that to scare you, I'm just saying that as a reality check, is that what would happen if you weren't on that medication? Where would you be? And what I want to help people do is to get to the same place, as a, you know, an even better place, because there's not going to be the side effects and all that sort of stuff to dealing with depression, right? Because we can do this, in large part at least, we can do this. So if we want to clear depression at its root, then the root causes must be addressed. And often we're going to need more than one approach or type of assistance, right? Be very, very clear here. And this is not an overnight fix, which is obviously what a lot of people are wanting, is an overnight fix. And that's just the mentality of our society. So I do have a Stop Depression Now program. The program is accessible from my webpage, which I'll share in a minute. And basically it's all about getting rid of all the stuff that we don't want, all those horrible feelings, and creating the stuff that we do want. So just to share a little bit more about what's actually in this program. At the start of it, you're going to set your intentions. You know, what is it that I want to change? Because it's really important to know where we are in order to know where we want to go. And then the first part is setting the foundation of understanding, which is going into much more depth than what I've done in this webinar, into what creates depression. And how the body actually communicates to us through emotions and stress, and how that eventually builds up to symptoms. And depression is a symptom. It is not an emotion, it is a symptom, in my world anyway. And then we do, or you do, an emotional needs assessment, and you look at How much were my emotional needs met when I was a child? Because this is where it all starts. In 12 years of working with clients, I have found that all these problems, whether it's a physical illness or a mental illness, they all get set up in the first 7 years of life. So we look at, okay, what happened in my life or your life, and how much were my emotional needs met or not? And then I teach some techniques for clearing emotions in the now. Now, it's really important to know that for a program like this, which is a self-guided, self-help program, this is not about going in and clearing all your trauma from your past. Obviously, that is impossible in a program like this. This program is about, because we repeat the past, right? The past repeats. Whatever is showing up in our life now, today, is a repeat of the past. So this technique that I teach in this program teaches you how to identify what you're feeling now, in other words, the hidden emotions underneath the depression, and what in the now is contributing to those emotions. Even if it's still connected to the past, it's about dealing with the now, because we just keep recreating circumstances in our life that are a mirror or a repeat of the past. So we can actually do a lot to affect the past just by addressing what is happening in our life right now. So there is a very specific technique for doing that, which is called my ESCT, or Emotional Symptom Clearing Technique. And it goes into depth into how to identify, you know, what is going on in your life right now that is creating emotions, that these situations that need to be addressed in order to reduce the emotions. Because if we reduce the emotions, we reduce the symptoms. That's how it works. Or the symptoms being the depression. And there's also another technique for helping to clear emotions just by yourself, just from inside. How to dissolve emotions from inside. So, and then there's lots of other bonuses and tips and webinars and various other things in this program. So there's a lot of information in the program, and it's all geared towards reducing emotions and depression. That's what the program is about. And in order to get to it, all you have to do is to go to the main page, kimnighthealth.mykajabi.com. I'll show you the link in a minute. And then you press on the, wherever it says, yes, sign me up, I'm ready to enjoy my life. and then it will take you to the sign up page. So this program is just you can go through it, and I would say, a month would be a good amount of time to go through it, and you just implement the techniques yourself. And until midnight tonight, as I'm doing this webinar right now, if you use the coupon code 100OFF, that will give you $100 off, which is over 50% off. And that is just until midnight tonight, just to give people a chance who couldn't watch it live that's midnight New Zealand, by the way, to watch it. And you can always email me or my assistant, admin@artofhealth.co.nz, if there's any problems with that at all. And I will have a record who was on the live webinar to cross-check if there's any questions. So the website is kimnighthealth.mykajabi.com to get to that. So I don't offer that very often. So, if you want some help, then that program will give you some really, really useful help. And then, as I said at the beginning, I just want to give you a heads up on a program that I'm launching 2018, but I will be launching it in December. It's a really comprehensive. It's like fear, anger, frustration, sadness, guilt, shame, upset, worry, hurt, loneliness, disappointment, betrayal, anxiety, boredom, doubt, suspicion, stress. It's like everything that I've noticed, that I call emotional stuff, how to clear all of this. And it's a year-long program, right? It will be the only time that I will run it live. I will only run programs live once. So that is a chance to get years guidance with me. Incredible value. The details are not ready to be given out yet. Hopefully in the next week or so, then I will have more information on that. And then of course grow all the good stuff, grow all the good positive stuff that we want. And in order to hear about that, then you'll either need to be on my Facebook page or on my e-news list. And by the way, if you join my e-news list on my portal, then you will need to click yes to receiving marketing materials to hear about, these offers, because if people tick no, then they're just not going to receive any emails from me. Yeah, so that's the Emotional Alchemy program coming up. So thank you for being with me, and I look forward to seeing you. Just keep your eyes peeled on the e-news and on Facebook for other events. Lots of stuff coming up. So thank you for joining me, and hope you have a lovely day or evening, and see you soon.